Welcome everyone to interview number 19 of OSU Improvement Month. Today with RyuK. Yo, welcome.
Hi.
Hey. So I suspect many people are already familiar with you, but just in case, can you give a brief intro to who you are as a player in the community and what people probably recognize you for?
Hello everyone. My name is RyuK, or everyone calls me Ryan now. Been a long standing member of top 10 since like 2018, end of 2017 now. Known for speed, and speed. But nowadays I'm more so dabbling in hard rock and a lot more tournament scene instead of speed, and so I've kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit, but I still got it in me sometimes. Randomly I'll come back, set a casual 900, and then go back to my little hard rock phase.
So,
Yeah,
have you really been in top 10 for that long, like without falling?
yeah. I don't remember. I remember checking a while ago, but I don't remember how long. But I remember the first time I entered was like the end of 2017. And then I dropped out of it like mid 2018, like early 2019. And then I came back and owned, and now I've been in the top 10 ever since.
Let's go. So, I think there's a lot of places we can start, but I want to start by asking you what you think the biggest mistake you made is throughout your entire OSU career, related to OSU still, but
um, Maybe not starting sooner, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to tell because I don't know if I could have made it this far if I started sooner. But that's like in hindsight. I guess the biggest mistake I've made like is probably like, I don't know, cheating quite a bit before my rise to the top 10. I actually, uh, fun fact, I cheated on. I was prior to my entry into top 10. I was banned on like four different private servers, including the official OSU server.
oh
That
no.
was quite bad. I quite regret that.
Yeah, can you, I guess, I mean, you don't have to go too in detail, but I think that's something that's actually news to a lot of people. So, can you sort of walk through the timeline of everything that happened there? Like, we could even
Um,
start from like when you first started playing the game back in 2015.
sure, we can start. I mean, I registered in 2015, but I didn't really start actively playing until like 2016, 2017. Mostly because I installed it because my IRLs told me it's something to do while we wait in queue for CS:GO. This is probably what a lot of people started it with. And then after that, when I started actively playing, I don't know. I was just like a no mod, like hidden one trick and like farming TV size maps. And then I only started getting a little bit more better when I started interacting a bit more with the community. Mostly Picapone. I'm sure some of you might know him.
Oh
But
yeah.
I used to be rivals with him in like 2016, and we used to compete with each other for like leaderboard scores and whatnot. And then one day he just like he did like like 8 scores in a row or something like that, and he like he went to top 1K while I was still like 5 or 4K. And also around that time, I think Cry and Nara also got banned, and I used to watch them play a lot. And then, so after that, I started thinking like, maybe like the entire top 10 cheats and just like nobody knows. And so I used a little bit of cheating, relax hack, and then I got banned. And then I kept using it in different private servers, and I kept getting banned like over and over again. And eventually, I was banned on like pretty much every server possible. And then I had a reflection, and I was like, maybe nobody actually cheats. And then I actually started playing for improvement, and like I played on the official server, but I was banned. So, and at that, I don't know if it's still possible, but when you set scores on the official server while restricted, they still show up on your profile.
Right.
Um, and I use that as a way to track my scores. And then after that, I actually got officially unrestricted beginning of 2017, and then that like end of 2016, beginning of 2017, I started like streaming a little bit on Twitch, and yeah, I started setting scores, and then I rose to the top, and then I had a false restriction in mid 2017 because like there was so much controversy around me, and then I got restricted for a month, but then I came back and I didn't. It was a false restriction, and then yeah, and ever since it's been going uphill.
I remember at that time when you got unrestricted, I think it was like after the false one. And I remember a
Yeah.
lot of people, especially in the Canadian community, they were like, oh man, look who's back, LOL, because there's just so much suspicion. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how you, well, sort of what you were going through at that time throughout the community and sort of what kept you around, so to speak.
Well, I had a lot of cheating accusations and it was pretty tough. But I looking back, I think it was well deserved. I was really egoistical back then. You know, I was young, I was full of energy and I was gaining ranks. Everyone was che- calling me out for cheating even though I wasn't. So I had a lot of ego and I wasn't the best when it comes to like community presence, especially how I acted back then. It was very immature looking back. But I did, however, the thing that kept me like playing the most was because I around OC has always been a lot of rivalry for me. So around that time, I also met someone named Dunois. I think he's unrestricted now, but me and him started again, fight battling for scores. But we played very different skill sets, so it was mostly for rank, and so that was what kept me, I mean, going. I guess I was just constantly going against him for scores, and then there was a time I forgot what period what where in the timeline that fits, but me and him were battling for number one Canada after it was like I took over Azer's number one, and then Dunois came and took my number one, and then it was just back and forth. But yeah, he kept me going for a bit. Actually, not even for a bit, for a while actually. And so yeah, that was mostly how I got motivation, even though my community present wasn't that good. But I was also like building a side community with Twitch, and I'm really happy that I did that because it has grown to what it is now.
What would you say was your favorite era of OSA? I feel like for you, you've really sort of had phases throughout your OSA career. What would you say was your favorite?
I guess the most hype phase would obviously be like in 2020 when I went on my, I don't know, my insane crazy spree of scores. That was definitely the most hype. Like I went to bed, I went to bed every night with a big smile on my face, and so that was definitely one of the happiest. I guess in terms of like, I guess I like it now right now because it's like I didn't really, yeah, I kind of fell off a cliff in terms of speed, but once in a while I can come back and do whatever or set some scores, whatever scores I want, and still be able to like dabble around in maps that I like and go for. I'm kind of chilling right now actually, and also my tournaments. I like the tournaments I'm in, and I like being with the teams I'm in, especially like I'm right now. A lot of the tournaments I sign up for are with a lot of close friends and people I play with actively, so that's always nice to be in.
So you mentioned that when you started, you actually were mostly Nomad and like I guess very lower BPM type player, so to speak. And I know you mentioned that somewhat in your speed talk, which I think is still something that people bring up throughout the community. So I'm curious what your sort of progression was as a mostly like aim focused player at the time. Were you already comfortable with like low to mid range streams at the time, or were you like super slow at? Because I think you mentioned that you had reached top 10 before you really started pushing speed. So like what did you define as speed at that time, and like how was that progression?
Um, First, I'll touch on what I defined as speed back then. Well, any I was really slow when I first entered top 10. So like low key, like I was like Badu slow. Like anything like 200 BPM was fucking speed to me. But but that was only because I was completely an aim player. I didn't touch any streams, and I'd never touched streams until like after I got top 10. There wasn't much to farm, if that made sense.
Right.
But or like the maps to farm were like very very impossible for the time. And so when I first started playing, like I didn't know how to move both my fingers. I was really really slow, and so like maps like Road to Resistance or like Ascension to Heaven or even like the big black streams, low key, were really hard for me back then. But but I didn't really play that much of stream types. It was mostly like super aim, like TV size, hidden hard rock, like send in life type of things. Because I was an alternator, it made everything pretty easy back then. And then when I actually hit top 10 and I hit that skill wall, then I started actually playing a little bit more speed. And I don't know, it didn't really feel like I was progressing because honestly, I really don't know how my speed actually like originally progressed. I just know that it like shot off once I FC time freeze, which is like really insane for that time because I had zero speed scores prior to that, and I just
Oh,
randomly did that.
you're right. I actually remember that. Everyone was like, this is the most like out of character score of the entire universe.
Yeah,
RyuK F-Sync time
zero.
freeze.
Yeah, and it was like the best act at the time, like by like I think it was like a whole percent or something. Anyways, like I did that, and like everyone was shocked, and I realized that maybe I could play some streams and some speed now, and so from then on I actually started like properly focusing and playing more because I was also an aim player. Like most maps that have speed and aim were pretty achievable for me, and so things like time freeze. I started touching like old AR8 DT speed maps as well, and also Speed Cup helped a lot. Especially the first iteration. The first iteration really taught me like finger control speed, like long stream speed and like burst speed, like 300 BPM burst speeds and stuff like that. And I realized I had a lot to work with after losing to a Praxis team in that tournament.
Oh, and the first Speed Cup. Yeah, I think Speed Cup or
Yeah.
tournaments in general really emphasize many different varieties of a certain skill set. Like even normal map pools, you have like a bunch of aim maps, but they're all slightly different. And so in Speed Cup, you
Yeah.
you end up having like 12 to 15. I don't know how big the map pools are, but a pretty long list of different speed maps. But it's not like they're all like different like flavors of speed, so to speak.
They're actually one of my number one places to go for speed maps, or actually any maps in general, but specifically speed at that time. I signed up for a lot of tournaments, lost a lot of them, but a lot of them I looked at the DT pool for speed because most poolers at the time would pool like stuff like Poinsettia, or like um, I remember Tamayura was in a map pool, even though that was like really hard for the time. Also, you also invited me to UFRJD at that time, so I also looked through a lot of the pools that you guys used for prior
Oh yeah, for scrims
yeah, weeklies. Yeah.
weekly. So you mentioned that you alternated as a early player. Do you feel like that was a mistake or that was actually an advantage? Someone sent in a question to you and they said, "Do you think alternating is a mistake to play speed? Because when I personally alternate while playing speed, I end up finger locking." So can you touch on alternating versus single tapping a little bit?
Okay, so when I first started, I played alternating, or actually it was like single tapping, but then like when I started touching like DT aim, it was alternating because the I was just really way too slow at single tapping. Um, I think like alternating is really good. I think it actually is should be the meta now instead of single tapping. I don't see a reason for players to like really push single tapping as yeah, I think it has a cool factor, but I think you benefit way more alternating, especially in the stamina department and like especially for like long consistent like speed maps. Like there's no way you're single tapping 270 BPM for like 5 minutes on some of these maps. It's just way more efficient to alternate. So when I don't think that you're handicapping yourself doing either. I just think learning both is actually pretty good. For me, at least, I only learned single tapping because my reading and my alternating skills are really low. They're not very good. They're quite shit actually, and so that's why I learned single tapping, and I decided to like whatever. I'll just put all my time in actually single tapping instead of trying to learn how to single tap with the other finger and then alternate. It just made more sense to me because my brain processed like 5 notes or like 3 notes or 2 notes or 4 notes better when I'm hitting them with my main finger. And so a lot of my speed building was actually for single tap, and it just so happened that the more I built on my single tap, the faster my speed got. But nowadays, I actually figured out how to hit 5 notes and 3 notes with my other finger, and so some plays I tend to alternate, or some speed plays I tend to alternate, and it makes things a lot easier.
Some people
But I don't think. Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Some people do mention that single tapping helps with like finger speed, and so if you like push single tap speed with either finger, then that can help. Is that something you have any thoughts on?
I think that's a pretty valid uh, reason for single tapping. It's because it pushes speed for one finger. Although I'm not sure how it works anatomically,
Yeah.
but at least for me, like the faster I single tap, like for example, if like a day I could single tap 270, I would know like my 270 streams would be really good as well. It just so happens to carry over with my other finger. I'm not sure how that works, but it may also have to do with my other finger being faster than my main finger, but I tend to use my main finger more because I started using my main finger.
So you single tap with index, I'm pretty sure, and then you play
Yeah,
middle, index middle.
yeah, index middle. But my middle can single tap pretty fast. I'm pretty sure it can do way past 300. I haven't actually limit tested too much, but it can single tap way faster than my main.
So a couple people have brought up things like finger locking when playing streams or accuracy when playing streams, things like that. Are those sort of like separate things that you would want to focus on, or do they kind of develop naturally as you just improve your stamina and overall skill level?
Specifically for finger locking, I don't know. It's always been. I always thought like finger locking meant like you're not comfortable with the BPM, but you can be comfortable with the BPM and still finger lock. I it's a really hard thing to like, solve. Some it might be like the position your hand is in. It just makes it easier for you to finger lock um or like not your fingers not move at all. I've had that happen, but usually it's it's hard to answer because usually if I finger lock, I just restart and I try again, and it just it just randomly happens. Usually, sometimes it has to do with fatigue, because your fingers are too tired and you can't move them fast enough, and so it finger locks. But then there's also times where you just finger lock for no reason, and you're like, "Am I not fast enough, or is today just one of those days?" So it's I don't think you should of think too much on finger locking unless you actually get fatigued from it.
Fatigued,
But
as
yeah.
in like it's coming, like it's happening when you're starting to feel fatigued,
Yeah, when you're starting to feel fatigue, like your hands getting tired or
right?
it's getting too much.
And
Yeah.
if if that happens, then I assume it's just like an actual skill cap issue.
Yeah, that's just a skill cap issue at that point.
Okay. So,
I
and
do,
then,
however,
oh yeah,
I do want to say that I did found a way to significantly reduce finger lock, but I don't know if it applies to many other players. Um, so I play Z and X, and the shift key is right next to Z and X. And nowadays, or sometimes when I'm running low on stamina, I three key tap, and my ring finger starts tapping along. And I don't know how that helps, but it does somehow make it easier to stream longer BPMs. And I'm not sure how that works, but I picked that up because I saw Malashevsky do it, and I started doing it, and it's kind of OP. So that's just something worth noting.
yeah, I remember Apraxia taps like that too, and
Yeah.
he was like, I remember someone pointed it out on his stream. He was like, or they were like, your tapping is so weird," and then Apraxia was like, "What are you talking about? I'm sorry, my middle and ring fingers are connected." So yeah, I think that it's probably because it takes like less effort to just move your ring along instead of
Yeah.
trying to do only your middle because of how the tendons are connected. If I had to guess.
Yeah, that's what I have to guess as well.
So some people mention the accuracy component as well. Would you consider accuracy a separate skill to work on, or does it relate directly with your stamina and speed?
I think it should relate directly just because it's an indicator of how comfortable you are with the BPM. Along with the UR bar is really important. Like you could be getting 80% act, but you're overstreaming the whole, like whatever the stream size may be. And so I think they're all directly linked, and you should get as low as a UR possible with as high as accuracy as possible on the BPMs that you are trying to achieve. Also, OD plays a lot in the factor. You could play an OD5 map and get 99%, but you're actually not actually streaming the BPM. So you should also take a look at that as well.
Are there any really common questions that you feel like you get often that you sort of want to touch on regarding this topic?
I mean, the most common one would be how did you improve speed, or like how do I get better at speed? Um, it's so hard to answer because it's been so long. It's also because I don't know. The way I did it from the most like clear way to say it is it's just you find maps that are too hard for you and you just keep playing them over and over again. Because the way I think I remember now, the way I got faster at speed was low key from trying to pass a lot of maps Elysian was trying to pass. And a lot of them happened to have quite high BPM streams. Like at that time for me, like 263, there would be like a 16 notes 263 BPM stream that I would be like, damn. And then I would try my hardest to hit that one stream to get a bit more combo. And it just happened to build into speed. So passing maps, always, I always try and improve scores that I've always done. So it always goes from a map I like that's way too hard for me, and then I try my hardest to get a really good score, and then I come back to it once in a while after I get a good score, and I try and improve it on it over and over again until evidently it becomes an FC. I mean, something and a good example of this is BS Power. Before my FC on BS Power, I was going for a pass, and that was like in 2019. I was going for a pass, and when I finally got it, I went for like combo, and I went for accuracy. I even have a video of it uploaded like from end of 2019 of me doing BS power, and it was like 15 misses or something like that. And then after that, eventually became an FC after I kept playing it over and over again. Stuff like that. It's a lot of grit. You need a lot of grit for playing speed, just because it doesn't just happen overnight, nor does it happen over a week. Sometimes it might happen over a month, it might even happen over a year. It's just, yeah, grit grinding.
It sounds like having that sort of inspiration for you was Elysian at that time, but having that sort of like, I almost want to say like beacon of hope, but that's definitely not the right phrase to use, but that sort of like guiding light, so to speak, where you're just like, wow, I would just want to be able to do what this person can do. And just,
Yeah.
I feel like that actually is a really good way to, I guess, push yourself to those further extremes that you sort of have that barrier on yourself that you feel like you can't, like, that you're like not quite good enough for those maps. But being able to get past that barrier with just like, man, just really wanting to be able to do what those players can do.
Yeah, for sure.
So, speaking of mental barriers, actually, there was a question that came in that says, did you ever have a mental barrier thinking your speed was capped? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Not really over the time I was progressing speed. Only recently I did, only because it was at a time, I think it was like right after like my 2020 like pop off and 2021 came. I still set some scores, but I didn't set as many because I ran out of maps pretty basically. Um most of I I have to say like the reason for me running out of maps is mostly because of my, what's that word? S- Sturdness of only wanting to single tap at that time.
Ah,
My single tap isn't very fast compared to a lot of players. It's still pretty fast enough for the maps I play. But after I ran out of those maps, like everything else was like 285, 300. I'm not I'm not able to single tap those speeds, and so I'm forced to alt, and because of that, I'm not able to, how should I say it, be as consistent as I would like to be on those maps. And it kind of drastically impacted me and put me up in a skill, like pretty much a skill wall at that point. And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of stopped playing speed, only because I'm too I still don't know what that word is. Stern to use single tap. But
Ah,
nowadays, like after
stubborn,
I
I guess.
learned stubborn, that's the word. Thank you. Stubborn for single tapping. But nowadays, since I actually properly learned how to alternate, I've been playing a little bit more speed. Not necessarily as fast as I was, but still fast enough to set scores once in a while.
So regarding
So yeah.
alternating again, you mentioned before that you like just kind of tried alternating straight from being, I guess, index dominant and sort of
Yeah.
not I guess like bothering to learn how to start patterns with your middle also. Do you feel like that's something that's like necessary or helpful at all? Is like learning to start patterns with your other finger, or do you feel like you can just kind of learn to alternate by just starting to alternate, even if you're really dominant to one finger?
Well, I would say that I think it definitely does help if you learn how to single tap, alternate, or sorry, if you learn how to hit triples, hit bursts, even like doubles and quads with your other finger, and then you learn to alternate. Um, I know this because Happy Stick told me he did that when he got like his hand problem, and he learned how to single tap with the other finger, and then now he can alternate, and then it stuck with me. But the way I did it was I literally just brute forced myself.
Ah.
I just brute forced it, and I just happened to like just one day it clicked, and I was able to hit triples in 5 notes. Maybe not very consistently, but consistent enough where if I just get tired, I can just alternate a certain part of the map and then go back to single tapping, which is what I usually do now.
So last, I think, question regarding speed, at least, hopefully for now. But I know a lot of people reference the quote unquote speed talk that you did a couple of years ago,
Yes.
where you kind of broke down all your thoughts on speed and what goes into it and things like that. How much of that do you still agree with? And do you feel like it still sort of holds up? Slash, is there anything else that you would want to add on to what you mentioned there, or anything else you've learned since then?
Um, I kind of forgot what I talked about in it, but I do remember this one like paint presentation I gave about like stamina, like raw speed and whatnot. I think that is like the most applicable like there is. Like if anything out of that talk you should get is probably that, and because it definitely plays a role on the types of maps you play because you can be consistent at streaming 270, but then not be able to hit like very stamina intensive 255 parts just because you're single tap capped or there's too many 5 notes or you don't have that finger control for it. And so I still today do think there's levels in terms of um speed. Like you could be your finger control could only be at a 240 level, but if a single note or if like a 50 note death stream happens, you can stream up to 300. And so there's definitely levels for that. And some people might have those levels be connected. Some people might just not be able to do that, but it's different for everyone. And so that's the one thing I think most people should get out of that talk. And to build those levels individually is also very, very helpful.
A couple people have, because I know you mentioned during that talk a bit about keyboard switches, and specifically
Yes.
you mentioned like lighter linear switches, like speed switches, for example, that you mentioned that they're not super like beneficial, quote unquote, or they can lead to bad habits. And I hear a lot of people sort of like have taken that into account or like sort of understood that, but they don't actually understand why. So can you elaborate a little bit on what exactly makes those lighter switches worse off in your opinion?
Um, I would like to retract that statement that I made in the past.
Oh,
I honestly think that it doesn't really matter anymore. Like switches don't really matter. It's all personal preference. Before I used to think that only because it was part of my experience. How like I'll give an example. There was a play I did, Bird Sprite Awakening. I think I have like 4 FCs on it. But the first FC I ever did was with switches, and because I did it with speed switches, I wasn't able to play the map very well afterwards, if that made sense. Only because like that play was quite mashed. It was really, really like yeah, it was really lucky. That's what it was. It was a fluke, and I happened to do it on like pretty much mashing. But the other FCs I did subsequently, one was on black switches, and the other one was on like classic reds and browns. And so that led me to believe that sure you can do well with speed switches, but it's like it's bad for your habits. But nowadays, I don't think it really matters. I mean, like anybody can get good on whatever switches they want because it just feels the most comfortable. I think like you should buy a keyboard based on how it feels to you. Although there are some keyboards that I do think that are like quite objectively worse just because of build quality and whatnot. Um, but my hate for speed switches don't has really fallen off a cliff only because I don't think they're necessarily bad for bad habits. I just think like I mean if you can make speed work on them, that's fine, but it's just it might impact you a little bit when you come to switch to a different keyboard, for example. The biggest difference would be like if you go from speed switches to black switches, you'll significantly do worse on black switches because you're not accustomed to the weight and your usual mashing habits don't really carry over. And so um yeah, but most people aren't making the switch from speed switches to black switches. They're just using whatever keyboard they have, or and probably don't have the financial excuse to buy multiple keyboards. And so now I just think like it's just better to buy a keyboard that you think feels good, you think sounds good, and you play well with them, and that's what you should stick with. That's your peripheral or peripheral? No, that's the I one. That's your equipment that you should use.
I think the question that's on a lot of people's minds after hearing that is the wooden keyboard that recently blew up in popularity. Is that something you have
Yes.
any opinions on?
I think the wooden keyboard has done something that a lot of keyboards should have done a long time ago, which was, many keyboard manufacturers do a long time ago, but I don't know why they haven't, which is their the ability to like not having to fully go up to the actuation point to reactivate again, which is really interesting. The only reason why I don't really like using it is one, I have a full size and it can't fit on my desk, which is a little bit more of a convenient problem.
Oh
And
no.
second, when I shake, my left hand shakes, and my when my tapping hand shakes, sometimes it activates the keys. And that's a very big problem when I use a wooden keyboard because it might double it and it has double activated on me by accident because I'm shaking. And
Oh.
so I can't really use that keyboard. Uh, but it does I do think it does help a little bit for finger locking as you can recover way better on a keyboard like that, or if you like happen to tap too lightly for one note and it you'll still be able to keep the stream speed the same even though you fell behind just for a little bit. So stuff like that is really useful, but I don't think it instantly makes you better. I do think it just helps quite a bit in terms of making you stay more consistent on the BPMs you're streaming at.
On the topic of light tapping, I think some people actually want to start working on having themselves tap even lighter than they do now. I think some people struggle with tapping a little too hard or just kind of like by nature of their tapping technique and it's something they're trying on working on. But do you have any tips for tapping lighter, either on speed maps or just higher BPMs in general?
I actually have no tips because I tap extremely hard when I stream and single tap and alt. So it's mostly because I used to play piano, and so I like to emphasize notes that I don't know how to describe it. It's like a metronome. Like I need to hear the audible click, if that makes
All
sense.
right.
And so, um, yeah, that's why I tap really hard. I definitely think if you tap lighter, it definitely benefits you a lot because you're not putting as much effort into each click as you would if you were to tap really hard. And so, yeah, I do think it's good to work on lighter tapping, but just be careful. You might end up in a place where your keyboard might not actuate if you tap too lightly. And so I think there's downsides and there's upsides. I've also heard some people have way worse act because they light tapping or they do light tapping, and that's also probably because uh, maybe it's just you're not able to hear that audible feedback, and so you don't know what BPM you're streaming at, quote unquote. And so I don't know. At the end of the day, I also think that's also personal preference, but it also is kind of beneficial to tap lighter, but not too lightly to the point where you might be overstreaming or understreaming and not know what you're doing wrong.
Right. Yeah. I think that that feedback is something that's really important for a lot of players and actually not so important for other players. So I think that's sort of what you're getting at is that
Yeah, sure.
you have to figure out what feels best for you. And I think the fact that you mentioned that you actually don't tap that late could actually, I think, help a lot of players feel a little more assured. Because I think some people feel like there's a sort of quote unquote proper way or better way to tap or, whatever it is that it might be. And I think you sort of reassuring people that like you actually don't quite tap like that and you are still able to get to a pretty high level in this game. So
Yeah, for sure.
So, switching topics a little bit, gradually escaping from speed, but someone asked, what are some tips for aim control when playing speed maps and doing long streams? So, this is less about the tapping aspect, but more like when you are playing those types of maps, how do you control your aim?
Um, for stream aim, I don't actually know. I'm gonna be completely real. When I play speed streams, I just kind of I just base it off of like my prior hidden double time experience on like short bursts, and I just apply it to long streams. It's actually really difficult for me to tell you how that kind of happens. It just so happens. I don't know how to describe it, but I don't know. I don't think I should be the person to go to talk about flow aim because I'm not that good at flow aim. I like if you told me to FC sidetrack day right now, I don't think I could do it on the spot. But in terms of speed, like aim control in like snapping, I'm quite good at explaining that. Only because that's what I naturally do, if that makes sense. And that does help a lot in the aim aspect of maps, aside from the stream parts and speed parts. But it does help in the aim aspects a lot. But yeah, I don't really have an answer to that. It just kind of happens. I just kind of aim hidden speed streams and it just works. And so I don't really need to do anything to improve on that or anything. I just kind of leave it the way it is, and hopefully it happens for every map I play.
I feel like there's something unique about your aiming style in particular, not necessarily in a good or bad way, but someone sent in a question. They said, "How is your aim so bouncy?" It is a good type. It is a good type of bounce, but I'm still curious.
um, I think it has to do with a little bit with me snap aiming everything that makes it really bouncy. I don't know. I also has to do with like I used to aim with tap X, and so the
Can,
reason
can
why
you
was
can you
because
explain
I
what that
like
means?
so tap X. So some players play tap X, which is one like X on your keyboard and then tapping the pen button. I play tap X, but with mouse buttons disabled. So I still tap normally. It's just I tap every note that I when I'm aiming. The reason being was it goes back to a long time where the maps in 2018 when I entered or 2017 2018 when I entered top 10 were all below 270 BPM, or if not they had very minimal speed or anything. It was just pure aim, and they weren't like absurd enough where they're like 300 BPM. And so I kind of just tapped every note because I thought I was a genius at the time because I wouldn't have friction interrupting me when I would go between jumps, and I would also have that I'll know I'm precise because I'll land on the note and I'll tap on it and I know that's where the note is, and then I'll move on to the next one. So I thought I was a genius, and then the skill cap ceiling was pushed and every map became 300 BPM, and I can't tap X 300 BPM. That's just not possible. I know people who do, but I can't do that. That just hurts my hand. And so I had to kind of build out of that habit. And so sometimes my habit falls back, and as much as I try to drag as much as possible, sometimes I just end up tap Xing, and I think that's probably why my aim looks kind of bouncy because I'm half tap Xing, half dragging some jumps, and it kind of works. So I'm not entirely complaining.
So I want to switch gears to you mentioned these days you're really, I guess, focused a lot more on hard rock specifically. First of all, is there a specific reason for that? And also, I guess, how has that progression gone since you started?
It actually started with aim first before I went into hard rock because I don't know, I just wanted to build aim, and then it progressed to hard rock because I like to put hard rock on aim maps, and so it got really fun doing that. And also the biggest reason for me, at least, why I just prefer to play hard rock now is because I could log on and start playing hard rock, and I'll be like good to go, and like it probably like take me 5 minutes to pretty much warm up fully, and I'll be trying to set scores immediately. And at the end of the session, if I get scores, I'm happy. If not, I'm not entirely disappointed, and I can go about my day. If I play speed, I have to log on. I don't know, start with like some aim maps or something like that, and then like play like stream speed, like I don't know, like 240 BPM, and then warm up for like an hour and a half, and I'm like all sweaty and it's ridiculous. And then I go on and spend the next 3 hours trying to FC like the same maps over and over again that I've played. And then I'll be really, really sweaty at the end of the session. And that was just not very nice because I didn't want to be sweating my balls off for the rest of the day. And I'm also really exhausted. Oh wow. What's up, Ed?
Yeah, shout outs to Ed for the raid. Thanks, Ed. um, so yeah, I think that okay, so sounds like hard rock is just kind of more attuned to your like I guess like on more casual sessions where you don't want to dedicate 2 hours to warming up and pushing speed. So
Yeah,
from there, so you went from aim maps basically to then pushing. I think you played in the Hard Rock Cup that happened
I
recently,
did. Yeah.
and you went kind of crazy in that tournament. How was that?
That was pretty fun. I think it was pretty interesting to play some of those maps with Hard Rock. It actually really taught me a lot about the skill cap of Hard Rock and what types of maps that are being challenged. Also taught me how insane some other players are, especially specifically Karcher, who has literally zero nerves in tournament. But that guy is pretty insane at Hard Rock as well. Not just known for his like stream Yomiuri or like his aim. He's actually quite an insane like Hard Rock player just for like tech and small CS and pretty much everything actually. He's just really good. But the map was there really showcased a lot of skill cap in terms of aim control, tech, anything that could be thrown into Hard Rock, it's right there. It's quite insane. And I actually got a lot of maps out of it, so it's good practice.
So speaking of Karcher and other very insane tournament players, I'm curious since this just happened recently, your thoughts on the current World Cup teams now that qualifiers is done and we are entering the bracket stage. I'm curious your thoughts on the World Cup overall, Canada's team this year, and everything related to that.
I'm really excited. I'm not gonna lie. I took a break from last year only because um I was actually failing at class, so I actually had to take some time off to focus on that. That's one of the reasons why I didn't play last year. So I didn't really pay attention too much to the World Cup last year, but I did pay quite a bit more attention this year, and I'm really excited to see how not only Canada does, but every other country does. And I really like to think that it's possible for Canada to maybe steal a cheeky second or first. I know first is pretty pushing it, but um, yeah, I would like to see that. I will say that I think our team this year might be the best it's ever been, in terms of everyone's performance is pretty much at their peak. The players that are on the our roster is quite like is pretty much the best out of our country, and and we've all got the synergy. We don't have Azer, but we have him in spirit and as our pre-game and post-game. And so I would like to think that it's quite possible for Canada to steal a second or first this year, and I'm hoping that happens.
What would you say makes a tournament player compared to someone who is, say, high rank in the leaderboard but not super competitive in tournaments? What do you think it is? Is it something with the skill set, or is it mindset, or is it just a lot of time spent into tournaments? What would you say?
I think it's everything, honestly. Like, y- if it comes to raw skills, like like if you take a tournament player versus I don't know like just an entirely aim focused player in like the top 100, and they play like a no mod one, chances are like the tournament player will probably win only because he's more experienced in the fact of building tournaments builds consistency and builds familiarity to the types of maps that you end up playing, and also allows you to really focus on being an all-rounder, or if you want to be in a specific skill set in tournaments, that too. But as well as when you play for just rank, you're primarily focusing mostly, well, nowadays, mostly it's all speed or aim. And chances are you're sinking a lot of retries into these maps, not without thinking them. Like you miss, you'll restart, miss, restart. And so when you take like a tournament player who's probably most of the time not restarting on a lot of maps, and you put them against the top 100 aim focused player, chances are they're gonna win just because of that fact. And I really like that idea of that, um, and that's why I like to be more of a tournament player myself. Is because that it's like you're showcasing a lot of skills, showcasing a lot of consistency, a lot of familiarity, and you're showcasing that you're not only good at one specific skill set, but you can, like someone like Malashevsky, FC every single map in the pool and be basically the king. And I like that idea.
Do you feel like consistency is its own skill, or do you feel like it's just the culmination of being good at the game?
I definitely think it's like any other skill. It's like most sometimes it's genetics and sometimes it can be built through grit. Um, but but I think the more you try and build towards that skill, the better it gets. I mean, I went from being a very bad, a non-consistent tournament player to try my best and being as consistent as possible now, and I think it shows from the OWC qualifiers. It's probably one of the best qualifiers I've ever had. Um, and so it definitely is buildable. But one thing that isn't buildable, and I'll continue to say, is nerves. I still don't know how people build nerves. I get really nervous, and I'm not really sure how to fix it. But I just kind of deal with it. Like if I shake, I'll just adjust my grip to my shake or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about nerves actually. So specifically when you're setting scores in solo, is there anything you try to think about or focus on while you're feeling very nervous, regardless of if it's in a tournament or in single player?
I just say, please don't miss. I, I don't know. I really don't have any answer to any nerves question, just because I also still struggle and I still try to find. Mostly, it's like I don't know. Like when I'm playing, I'm thinking a lot of things actually. Mostly, what happens in the like outcome. I'm always thinking about outcome, which is probably why I get nervous because I always think about what happens after if I miss or if I don't miss, and so that could be one of the reasons. I like to imagine that sometimes when I play team tournaments, I like to imagine that I'm the only one FCing, and so I must FC, and if I miss the map is over. I like to, but
Do you
but
feel like
that
is that something that contributes to your nerves, or does it actually help
yes
it?
and no, yes and no. I think it kind of helps it because it gives me adrenaline to stay focused for the rest of the map. But it
Ah,
does make me nervous. But I do end up like pulling adrenaline performances when I'm nervous. So I don't know. I can't tell.
I don't remember what year this was, but you changed your grip quite a bit because your old one, you said like if you had even the slightest shake, your aim would just go crazy. Can you talk a bit about that grip change and how it was kind of going through that, how you came across your newer grip and everything in between?
So I'll start from the very first grip I had, which was like that weird like calligraphy pen grip that I had. I don't know how that happened. I just knew that was quite really good for me aim wise, but really crap for me everything else. So I'm not. Don't do that grip. That grip was really bad. I moved on from that grip, and I actually have a normal person grip, and now it's just over the years, the grip has changed only slightly. I wouldn't say that it's like slightly. I don't really pay much attention to it, just how it feels when I put my hand on the tablet and I just hold the pen however it feels the most comfortable with and most like I'm most familiar with. And so that's why a lot of streams you might see me have a different grip compared to the last stream, or it might be just different, just because I think of grips like I don't know, like it just changes every day. Sometimes the grip that you used yesterday just doesn't feel right today, and so I might have a different grip for today. And that's just the way how I do it. I do think like having a good stable grip does help for nerves or grip slip, which is I know is quite common for everyone. And so I try to find a grip that doesn't grip slip, which is pretty good so far, the grip I have right now. And then it's just like slight adjustments every day to however I'm feeling.
Have you experimented with grip tape or anything of the sort? Do you feel like that's something that helps, or in your experience at least?
I used to use grip tape, and and it does help, but it's just it wears off, and it just becomes like if you were to use without grip tape, just the grip tape becomes oily, and you have to change it every once in a while. And I also realized that I have small hands, and so I don't really like the thickness that grip tape adds. And recently, I swapped off I think it was the 480 tablet, just because the pen got is too big for me. I just one day woke up and the pen was just too big for me to hold. And so I decided to switch to a 472, which has a much smaller pen, and I don't really use grip tape on it, just because of the grip I found. It doesn't really slip too much. Yeah, it slips sometimes, but it's like it's enough to get me through like 5 to 10 minute maps without problem.
What was the hardest skill for you to learn? I feel like, especially as someone who kind of started as a one trick, so to speak, way back when, and slowly but surely throughout playing many, many tournaments, ended up having a pretty competitive skill set and relatively well balanced skill set. So I'll ask you, throughout all the skill sets that you've learned, which one would you say was the hardest?
Reading, reading is the hardest. I don't really have really good reading, and it's evident because I think okay, this OWC qualifier, the DT2, had doubles, quads, 6 and 8 note streams, and I was just completely unable to play that map, which is why I sat out for the second round, because I just kept breaking on them. I just didn't know how many notes to hit or how many taps to hit. So that's one of the readings I struggle with. A lot of maps I misread by accident just because I'm not reading things properly. I don't know. I just have really bad reading and I don't really know how to fix it. I just something I just adapt to, and so that also translates over to maps like low AR hidden twos, nomad some nomad sixes, which have like really weird reading or really weird rhythm, is really difficult for me just because I don't have the reading capacity nor the finger control sometimes to hit those patterns. I still struggle with it now. I don't really know how to build it because I'm kind of lazy and also because it's just way too difficult for me. But everything, all other skill sets wise, it's been pretty straightforward to learn. Most of it heavily relies on aim, and so the better you build your aim, the easier it is to learn other skill sets. Most um, something like that would I would say would be like a Nomad 3. Low key, some most Nomad threes nowadays are more snap aim and aim in focus general, just like at 1/3 mapping or like at 128 BPM like alt mapping. And so if you learn aim, you'll be able to hit those.
So, despite not being super comfortable with reading, if you are forced to play one of those maps in a tournament where, let's say, it's a 1v1 or you just have no one else that can play it, are there any strategies you use to kind of squeeze out as much score as possible? Do you use gamma or do you switch skin, or is there anything else that you try to focus on to sort of squeeze out score on those maps that you're not super comfortable with?
I I cheese as much as possible. Um, an example of this was 2 years ago, OWC 2020, when Sputnik was first pooled. I was the fourth person on that map, solely because nobody else could play a map like that because it was like brand new, like kind of rhythm, like weird alt mapping that nobody has ever done. And so I had to play that, but it was quite easy for me to cheese only because I just played every note as triples and quads and like single tap the whole map. and I was able to push a, I think it was like a C rank, like 500k, something like
Oh
that,
my,
with like a 1200 combo.
oh my
Now I
god.
can, I'm a bit better at that map, but uh, I just cheese as much as possible. Some things that I can't cheese, like hidden, is just kind of doomed. I just try my best on that. I did learn recently that from a very many people would probably never heard of her. Her name is Aether or Celery. I recently played a Canadian tournament with her, and she taught me that upping gamma actually works really well for low AR. And I just do that now. I just up gamma for low AR.
That is actually interesting. Why do you think that is? I've never tried increasing gamma for lower AR.
I don't know. She says that it's because she can see the notes better. I might have just been placeboed to thinking that's true, but I kind of play better with higher gamma than lower gamma on low AR or on low AR maps.
Interesting. So for context, gamma typically, if you increase gamma, it makes the notes feel slower. So like AR 10.3, you increase the gamma, it might feel like AR 10, and lowering the gamma kind of does the opposite. So usually the strategy, quote unquote, with gamma for lower AR is that people lower their gamma because it makes AR 8 feel like maybe 8.5 or sometimes 9 if you turn it really down, but at the cost of the notes not being as clear to see, or if you turn your gamma up really high, it'll hurt your eyes. But yeah, that's interesting that you sort of use the kind of opposite direction of gamma.
I know Utami used the opposite direction of gamma as well. Because when I was at the round table, for I forgot whatever that map, like the one map by Delis, uh, the one with like the guy in the woman's boob, and it's like alt. I forgot the name of the map,
Oh
but
yeah, wait,
it was
okay. For some reason, I feel like I know. What you, oh, wait, is her hair like pink or something?
yeah. Her hair's like pink. There's like a TV size version, like I think cut paper is number one, and then
Yeah,
there's like a
yeah.
long version that Delis map. Anyways, that map,
Hijitsu. Someone
I
said Hijitsu.
yeah, Hijitsu. I witnessed Utami up his gamma to like 2 point something and play the map really well, and I was like, wow. I didn't pay much attention to that. I only thought he was crazy for doing that until Celery told me about this hack, and so now I am a high AR user or high gamma user for low AR.
Oh, yeah, I found it. Hijitsu Zaike is the first word of the title.
Yeah, that is the map.
But yeah, that's actually it's kind of big brain. So I want to switch a little bit to the more mental or mindset side of improvement. A lot of people asked questions about here. Let me just grab one in particular to start with. So someone asked, they said, I always get demotivated to improve a skill set that I'm bad at. Every time I do a decent score, sometimes I feel dissatisfied about my performance. What are your thoughts on this?
That's really normal. Everyone gets dissatisfied with their performance because you always put yourself at a higher expectation than you should be, based on what you have done in the past. For example, I'm the same. I could log on and not be very good, and I'll be like, "Damn, I FCBS power in the past. How am I so crap right now?" I mean, it's normal. It just happens. It's the important thing is like every day is not always your best day, and you just got to move on from that. And if you're not feeling aim or you're not feeling like stream speed, maybe you can touch some Nomad 3s or Nomad 4s, which is alt or tech, or maybe try playing some long maps and have enjoy the song instead. I mean, I do that all the time. If I'm not feeling something, I just start playing random maps. Like the other night, I just started playing Sidetrack Day for no reason because I was just bored. It just happens. Like personally, I think mindset is one of the most important things, and you just gotta. The best thing to do is to accept that you're not always going to be the best player in the world or in the game or at that moment or to yourself, and so you should play whatever you want to play. And if it just so happens that you're playing really well, then you should try playing the maps that you want to FC or the maps that you want to push skill cap for. And so, yeah, that's my take on it.
So someone else asked a similar question. They said, what's the best way to balance enjoying the game and also going up in rank at the same time?
Um, that question can be easily answered as to like what do you value more. I'll use myself as an example. Like love seeing my rank go up or gain ranks or gain PP. And so that's something I want to do, but it's very, very hard at my level, and it's without putting a lot of effort. So I try and find something else that I enjoy also doing in the game, which is in this case playing like hard rock maps or like aim maps and getting good scores. It makes my serotonin level go up. And so if it just so happens it's not my day, I'll play those maps and my serotonin level goes up. If I'm having a good day and I play like and I go for PP or ranks or even scores in general and I end up getting them, serotonin level goes up. But if it doesn't, I just chill. I just accept that it's not a good day and I just play new qualified maps, new loved maps or stuff, or maybe even lower star rating maps, and try and go for like leaderboard ranks.
Someone asked specifically to you, they said, is there one map slash skill grind that if you never did would forever change your playstyle slash mindset?
One map that I never grinded. I cannot give off the top of my head one map that I can think of that I grinded and really, really pushed. Let me see. Let me think. Let me see if I'm gonna go on my profile actually.
Okay. Because,
I guess I guess time freeze low key because I did play that
ah,
map quite a lot, but it wasn't exactly. I mean, if we go even further back, it would be Inferno.
Monstrata
Which
map?
is really which is really surprising to a lot of people. But I don't know. I don't remember the events that happened. I just remember that I really wanted to get a Hard Rock FC on the second top diff, and at that time there was only like 3 HRFCs, and I really wanted to do that, and I kept grinding that map. And
That
it was
must have
it was
been
one of my
2016.
first 600. Yeah, it was one of my first 600 I set when I got unrestricted, and one of the reasons why people thought I was cheating because I set it in one try.
I assume you just kind of grinded it over and over offline.
Yes, I did. I did grind it over and over offline.
Yeah, I remember this map specifically. I basically, I think I did the same exact thing. I just grinded this map offline at that same time. I was like, dude, this map is like so. It was just like it. I don't know what it was about it. It was like it was an aim map, or like it was a streamy farm map that
Yep.
aim players could play for some reason.
Yep.
So
And I really liked it as well. I don't know, something about that map.
all right. So a couple people asked about what you would do if you reach a skill wall. So I think you somewhat mentioned that you feel somewhat at a wall with speed, but I
Yeah.
think sort of in general, are there points that you would give, even just like for your own personal experience, what you would do if you're at a skill wall?
I mean, the best thing to do is just to come back to it later, or if you really have the grit for it, continue pushing, which is what I did really early on. But now it's I'm kind of old, I'm kind of tired, and so I don't have maybe enough grit to push through that skill wall, and so I just find myself dabbling in other things, which is now evidently hard rock and aim. And so, yeah, I mean, if you, I would say if you're young, go for it. Keep the grit, and you'll get through it because that's what happens when you're young. But if you're old, like me, well, you can try playing other skill sets until you come back another time. It just randomly happens some days. You might just randomly decide to set an amazing play, and it's like uncharacteristic for that day.
I want to ask about time management, so to speak. A couple people did send in questions regarding time management and how you're able to balance being a college student and being a content creator slash competitive OC player and having schedules and things like that. Is there any tips that you have for balancing your time between hobbies like OSU and all your other obligations?
For me at least, I realize that I actually have a lot more time in a day than I think I do, if that makes sense. I always think like, oh my god, I got to do work, I got to do study for this thing, and then I want to play Osu, and then I won't have time. Technically, I mean, if you balance it out properly, you actually have a lot of time. If you like, what you can spend like 2 hours a day studying every day for maybe an exam you have next week, and you have like 22 other hours to do, maybe -9 for sleeping. You have a lot of time actually, and I always see people who go like, I have to quit OSU to study or something. It's kind of bullshit because a lot of the time you still have a lot of time to play games. I mean, I took time off last year to not play OWC because I was failing class, and I still found time to play OSU. It's just I knew I wasn't able to fully commit, especially in a World Cup setting, and so that's why I decided to drop out of that. But like in terms of balancing like tournament schedules, I think it's just better to like prioritize like have like school stuff. Obviously, I mean, if you're, I always get uh, I always go out with friends sometimes on the weekends, so I always do that. And then I prioritize scheduling tournaments and whatnot. But I always find myself having a lot more time um, than I think, and I usually put that time into playing Osu, which is evident in my play count graph.
I think the other aspect of OSU that you're actually pretty familiar with is actually mapping. I'm curious
Yes.
how you first got into mapping and what made you want to start taking it more seriously.
um, I I got into mapping because of one player from a very long time ago. Her name is Ikenai, IKA. She basically goes by. She doesn't play the game anymore, but I did a collab map with her a long time ago. Um, I made like a normal diff on one of her maps. Um, there's that, and I also made a me and you before any me and yous were made. There was that person and also another girl named Gabby Pichu. I forgot what her name goes by now, but anyways, those two introduced me to a lot of mapping, and that's how I got better at mapping. I don't know. I just kind of kept looking at maps and figuring out how the structure in them happens and whatnot, and like how to map rhythmly or stuff like that. I'm gonna be real. I didn't watch a single Pishy Fat, Monstrata, or any mapping video. It was purely all from me looking at ranked maps and me playing a lot of maps and me analyzing a lot of maps and looking at like top 10, what makes like a map like most voted as like top 10 or something like that. Um, but before I actually started looking into maps like that, I actually just mapped because I wanted to hit high big jumps. I just wanted to map big jumps and big streams, and I had no idea what I was doing.
What's your favorite map that you've made?
Probably duplication. Either duplication or mouse like sidewinder missiles. Those two maps are probably my favorite. Duplication, I took heavy inspiration from what's his name? RyuK when his map was first made in like 2020. I think it was put in a tournament and I really liked that song and map, especially also because I was going through a Zek phase. I really enjoyed his maps. I think that's one of my best tech map. I don't think I could ever top that now, but I actually went off on that map. It's kind of unknown on the radar, but it's okay. It's okay. I just enjoy it. It's something fun to play. And then also Mao's like Sidewinder missiles. Samish, Samish sent me an unfinished map of his, and I really liked the song, and I wanted to map like a, and he didn't finish his map, and so I wanted to finish his map. And I mapped like parts of it, and then I told him, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't want to ever release this, so it's fine." And I was like, "Okay, I'll just make a full map out of it." And I spent a lot of time making like a kind of aim map, like I don't know. It's just a really banger song, so I decided to map something like that.
What's the most fulfilling part about mapping for you?
It's gotta be seeing others play your map. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, Mapping is fine. Like I think it's fun to map, and then like you look at your. It's like I don't know. It's like painting. Like there really isn't really anything that sticks out to you while you're painting. But when you finish painting and you look at it, you're like, damn, I can't believe I made that. And then you show everyone, you're like, wow, look, I made this, and it's like awesome. At least that's what I think of it as.
Someone asked, will you ever try ranking a map?
Maybe I tried to, and it was a lot of effort, and I'm really lazy. Probably not. I mean, I could make a GD. I know that you can have guest participation difficulties do show up in your profile. So I might make like a guest diff on the map, but I don't think I have the mental capacity or time. Well, maybe not time, but like I'm just too lazy to look through mods and change a lot of things and redo a lot of rhythms and find four other guest difficulties to make a full set. It's just like I'm just lazy. That's it.
Speaking of having the motivation to do things, someone asked if you'll ever, if you're gonna farm to stay in the top 10.
I'll try. I'll try. It's not one of my priorities to do because it's really hard now. It's actually ridiculously hard. Like getting an 800 doesn't even give me 1 PP, I think. And that's really, 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 really insane to me. I still think like 650 PP is a lot of PP to me. I'm kind of stuck in 2017 right now. And so, and I'm also running out of maps really quickly. Like there's only like what 2 or 3 more maps I think I can get like high 900 on. So it's quite difficult unless I actually put like all my effort into it. And so maybe I'll try. I mean, who knows? I might get really insane at Hard Rock, and suddenly I've unlocked like 8,000 more maps to do, and so that's something as well to think of. It just kind of happens.
Someone sent in a question, somewhat related to your top plays, actually. They said, do you think that going for cool scores actually impacts your ability to progress? For example, trying to get cool plays in your top 10/15.
Cool plays. Like what do they mean? Like I guess instead of going for a number one PvP play, they go for like a intriguing play for number 10 or something. I feel like that's like a D ranker mindset,
Well,
low key. You just
I,
go,
I think what they're talking about is like you don't want to play like the generic farm maps. Like you want to get top plays, but on maps that are like,
oh, I
yeah,
see.
that are actually kind of unique.
I guess that's something a lot of people do or try to do. I mean, to make their top 100 look nice. I mean, it's fine. I think that's fine, but um, it's like you can do it both ways. You can get a bunch of farm maps in your top play and then go for cool scores and then slowly litter them up with cool scores. Or you can do the opposite, do cool scores first, and then if you want ranks, then farm all the maps that are actually easy and then you just shoot up in ranks. I mean, but both work. I mean, I in the end, I don't know, like I feel like that's just like a social construct. You just want to show others your top plays look cool. I mean, it's fine. I mean, some people like that. I just think it's kind of pointless. If you're trying to improve skill or shoot up in ranks.
So I think to answer the question directly, they specifically asked if it impacts your ability to progress. Is that something you would agree with or not really?
Mm, that's hard to tell. I mean, I guess not really. Assuming that you can still play those farm maps. I mean, I feel like they're also a different category. Farm maps versus like cool scores or something like that. Um, well, it's I think as long as you feel like you're improving, it should be good.
So earlier you mentioned I think it uh, was it bird spray, where you said that score
Yeah,
was kind of cheesed, so to speak, or that
yeah.
felt really lucky. Someone sent in a question and they said, in the past, have you ever set scores that you felt you weren't ready for? And if so, did you actually feel accomplished or did you just pass them off as good luck?
Um, there's a lot of scores that I just kind of one tried. Then I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't have one tried them. I mean, uh, I would say, are you like every single top play I've ever done? Maybe like 80. Actually, not every single one. Like 85 to 90% of them, I have put a lot of retries into doing. S- Occasionally one or two plays I might have done in like one try or two try, but a lot of the a lot of it has required grinding, and I don't really feel like I mean, I guess unless it's like a really easy map, I don't really feel like a lot of my plays are like out of character or something like that, or like I did it as a fluke. I mean, to be fair, every play is kind of a fluke if you think about it, but um, yeah, I grind most maps. I have like a lot of locos on most of them.
I'm curious, out of all the scores that you've set, if there's any that you're most satisfied with.
Um, I think I pinned them on my profile actually.
Ah, okay.
I'll take a look at them. Um, I get, I guess like placebo undying, bird spray. Those are like two of my favorite scores. Love your enemies is another one. I don't know. I like all my scores. There isn't really one that stands out to me. Some are like maybe like unknown and actually I think are a lot better than others. Like a match into water. That one's pretty good. But I don't really have a favorite score. I do have favorite maps and songs.
Oh, someone actually asked you, what is your favorite song, not just in Osu, but in general?
Oh, in general. I don't know. I have a lot of song. I like my song taste kind of switches a lot. I'll say one that I've been listening to a lot in Osu. Actually, two of them. One of them is ABC by Polyphia and Sophia Black, and the other one is Fly by Epic High. I think our map was recently ranked by them.
Yo, that's a
Yeah,
banger. Such a classic.
those are two songs I from Osu that I've listened to a lot. And then in terms of outside song tastes, I guess like I listen to a lot of PH1, the Korean artist. What else? Like occasionally J Park. Um, I don't really go through artists that much. Mostly like whatever song sticks out to me. Yeah. Mahalia is also one of them I listen to.
Someone asked thoughts on Yomi Yori and ICDD in general.
I'm not really a fan of screamers. I do like indie songs like and emo punk like Dance Gavin Dance, but I like them for their choruses, not necessarily their screamer parts. Um I just think of like the screamer parts as like instruments, low key. But I like Yomiuri and ICDC. I'm not really a fan just because I don't know. It's just like screamer music. I just like um melodies. Like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like more tame music compared to screamers.
So going back to, you mentioned that like top players these days are like ridiculously crazy.
Yeah.
Someone asked, how was it seeing so many players evolve in your time? People rising through the ranks,
Oh.
and also maybe your thoughts on certain people like Emmerich who continue to destroy the records and set new ones.
It's interesting to see a lot of people pass me, a lot of people I pass. I don't know. I think it's fun. It's like you're like a grandpa watching everyone grow up. Like I went from being the youngest in the top 10 to I think I'm like the oldest now.
Oh
And
no.
it's really, really, really interesting to see. I mean, a lot of people, the one thing I'll notice is a lot of top players don't have enough grit. Like they just like they get there and then they plateau because of like some skill wall or skill ceiling and then they just like stop playing the game and then it's over. And it's just so sad to see. And then I'll pass them and I'll be like, wow, this guy used to own me and now here he is leaving the top 10. But I really like seeing Emrek not have that plateau. I think this might be the first number one player who has not like given up immediately after they've gotten number one, and it's really fulfilling and enjoying to see him continue to push skill caps and whatnot, and always surprise everyone with a new score every day. And a lot of and other top 10 players now are also like that. I mean, Utami being a tournament legend, Shimon continuously doing absurd like 100 5 100 like one digit 100 count on like maps that should not be DT'd FC'd and Matthew still playing the game and being consistent there is also always make me happy.
Who are
So
some players, especially in the Canadian community, that you're sort of looking forward to them rising through the ranks, sort of like up and coming players?
Spicy is one of them. I'll name a lot of them, but chances are most people here wouldn't know them. But Spicy has been rising through the ranks really crazily, and his brother too, Sakril. Very interesting. Sakril recently FC'd Worldwide Choppers, or not recently, but FC'd Worldwide Choppers, and Spicy
Oh,
has been on like that DT grind. There's also CL has been a speed prodigy. and is rising through the rankings as well. And like old names are still always here around, like Nick, Rupert, Zudi, always setting scores once in a while. And I don't know, the Canadian scene is very interesting. It's like there's like a huge tier difference between like really top players and like rising like ranks, like tier 2 players. I'm not saying tier 2 as to like downplay their like skill level. It's like top 50 versus top 500 kind of level players. So it's always nice to see like those top 500 players always still play the game and set scores once in a while. And,
What do you
and it's always
think?
it's
Oh,
exciting.
oh, you can finish.
No, no, I was just gonna say it's always exciting.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What do you think makes that difference? Like, what do you think helps push you over the edge, so to speak, from being like decent but not quite there? Is it higher skill cap, or is it just sort of more consistency on those same hard maps? Or what do you think it is that really separates those players? And what would you say those players are missing to really push themselves over the edge?
My opinion, it depends what you want to be as a player. If you want to be like a tier 1 like aim speed prodigy, then you could be like someone like Marami and set insane speed scores or aim scores, and you would be up there in like a tier 1 bracket. Well, it's kind of like bracketing is kind of weird, but um or you could be like an insane like tournament prodigy like Zudiator or Xylice, and you would be like quite up there in like a tier 1 bracket. It's whatever you want to be the best as a player. And so I think that's what separates it from like tier 1 and tier 2 like in terms of player rankings.
You mentioned grit a lot throughout this conversation. Can you just describe what exactly you mean by that?
So grit s- is something that you need. It's basically the ability to keep retrying maps or keep playing like the same thing or keep even playing the game in general and not give up. Um, it's always funny because we toss it around in the Canadian community a lot because some people have if people like give up, we'll just say you got no grit, but it's like just like not giving up basically and like continuously pushing. Like if you might choke a map like 500 times, keep going, keep gambling. No grit.
uh, sounds like a combination of perseverance, persistence, those sorts of like dedication. I don't know,
Yeah.
just kind of focus towards not giving up on that goal.
Yeah, for sure. That's what it is.
I feel like an interview with you would not be complete without bringing up the Quan Grindset. Can you define what that is and how it started?
I have no idea where that started. I have no idea who even made that meme. It just appeared on my Twitter one day and everyone kept saying it. And I just decided, you know what? I guess it's like free like publicity and whatever the stunt is, I'll just go along with it. I actually have no idea what that is. I have no nothing. I know nothing about it. But I just kind of make something up with it and I go along with it to make the community happy.
Do you have any theories as to what it means or like where like it probably started or just generally like your thoughts aside from what you already mentioned?
Because one of them has probably come from like whatever. I remember I was on stream. I talking about Matthew. I was like, he got more bitches than me. He looks more handsome, more successful. That little clip was probably one of the reasons why it got started. I don't know. They just took an Instagram photo of me and put that text on it, and that was really surprising and interesting. Caught me off guard.
Someone sent in a question. They said, "Do you really own the GT86?" And can you explain what that means
GT86.
in case
Okay,
people don't
so
know?
it's for car people. There is a car brand. There are three car brands that make the same car but under different brands. The Toyota 86, Scion FRS, and Subaru BRZ. I used to own the Subaru BRZ, and that's what the car in that Quan Grindset photo is. I don't own it anymore. I traded it off. I have a WRX STI now.
Someone asked a similar question. They said, "How do you join the Quan Nation?"
I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is. You can join it. I accept you with open arms.
Do you feel like it's a I don't know. I almost want to ask like do you feel like it's a positive thing, so to speak, or like does it like I guess like I don't really want to say does it bother you because I clearly doesn't, but I I'm just like I don't know, really curious to. I mean, maybe you can make up a hashtag Quan Grindset and like sort of make it a bit more of an official mindset that people can actually like point to instead of just this vague sort of concept.
I feel like if I were to do that, it might ruin it because right now it's so vague. Nobody knows what it is. It's just funny to say. So I rather leave it at that.
Okay. Someone asked when will we get hashtag Quan Grindset merch?
Dude, I tried to do merch and it's so hard because like most websites charge obscure prices and they only the profit margins are so small on them that I just completely gave up on trying to do any type of merch unless I actually have like my own printer or whatever, and at that point that's just too much effort and I can't be bothered. So unfortunately there will be no Quan grind set merch.
Well,
Unless someone gives me a way to do it, then that's foolproof, high cost or low cost and high profit margins.
do you have any sort of like overall actually I'll use a submitted question for this. Someone earlier sent in a question. They said, "How do I improve?" Utami number 5, RyuK number 9. So the question is anonymous, and they also misspelled the word improve.
I mean, it's so like that's what most people are gonna ask, and it just goes back to the combination of having grit, being able to section out like the time you play on OSU and what you want to achieve, what you want to grind for, what type of scores you want to set, and also has to do with the fact of how you want to how your what's it called? Frick, I lost the thought. How your mental is when you play the game, and it all comes down to playing more at the end of the day. But you do have to. It's important to focus on what you want to do when you play more. You can play more. You can play like 1,000 hours more and not improve anything because you didn't decide to improve at anything. But if you put 1,000 hours and you section it off into improving at the skill sets you want to improve, or if you're playing for PP and rank and you're actually going for scores all those 1,000 hours, then you're improving. That's
There's a couple of miscellaneous questions that I feel like I should do the honors of asking. Someone sent a question. They said, "RyuK, when will you change your next hairstyle?"
it's already been changed. I My hair has been one of the longest I've ever grown it out to be. I'm not gonna lie. I need to get a haircut soon. But every time I turn on stream, my haircut's different.
People were theorizing in the chat earlier. There was like a couple of memes about like I don't know if you saw this like before Osu and after Osu, where it's like pictures of you from like there's like an older picture of you and then like one from when you dyed your hair and your hair was like completely different.
Yeah.
Is hairstyle like sort of a form of expression for you?
I My hair is the most important part of how I look. That's that's how I say. And so at that time I was experimenting a lot with my hair in terms of color, perms, and whatnot. And so that's why I kind of look like a maniac on some days, and some days I look like a normal person. I was just going through everything.
I'm also curious, I guess, things unrelated to Osu. So I think we can stay on the topic of games for now. But are there any other games you're focused on right now or having fun playing?
I have I only play single player games. Recently, I finished the entire Metro series. What else? I play Tarkov, but single player because I don't. I just want to play by myself. I'm gonna be real. And then now I play Genshin Impact by myself. I I don't know. I'm out of the competitive competitive scene in terms of many games. I don't know, I just prefer not to play. It's just too much. I wouldn't say it's too much effort. It's just too draining. I don't have the energy anymore to continuously put out 100%. Some days I just want to put out like maybe 10%. Yeah, that's what I
Someone
do in my free time.
I'm curious actually, if you can answer this with as much or as little detail as you want, but I think a lot of people are curious how you're doing these days, just sort of in general.
I'm doing okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a really personal one, actually. I guess I'm doing okay. Winter's always the, I don't know why, winter's always the most depressive season for me. It's just like low energy, it's like cold, but it can also be the highest energy because my IRLs come over from Toronto and I get to see them again. Um, so there's that. Yeah, I mean, just waiting. I'm waiting for winter break right now. I need the snow. I need yeah, I need my break from school right now.
All right, I think the last question that I will ask is one that came in from the forum. This is anonymous. This is an anonymous question, and they asked how to win at the game.
You can win at the game by finishing your personal goal that you set. That's how you win the game. My personal goal, I actually had the end game FC collection, and I FC'd every single map in there, and now I am free.
Oh my god, I feel like a lot of people who have those kinds of collections, they just by the time they FC them, they added more that are harder.
Well, I kind of well, some of them are easy and some of them are not so easy. I just kind of it was like a bunch of maps that I really wanted to FC, and I didn't think I could until I actually did. I mean, one of them was literally World's End, BS Power, um, that Senpu no Mai map, the one by Small Boat. I didn't even think I could FC that, and then it just so happens, and so now I'm done.
All right. Oh, okay. Fast question. Someone asked, "What did you eat today?"
I ate a very spicy chicken burger, and I will be getting no spicy next time. That was really, really spicy.
All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts slash opinions slash shoutouts slash anything you want to share with the world as we wrap up?
Um, Keep grinding. That's the Quan grind set. You just gotta do it. And if you don't follow the Quan grind set, then what are you doing with your life? Like what are you even grinding for?
Well
My
said.
2 cents.
Thanks again, Ryan, for taking the time to join us, and of course, everyone for listening.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, are there any places people can find you aside from your OC profile?
I'm a very hard man to contact, I really sectioned off my online and IRL life. So if you go to UBC, you might find me. Don't be afraid to say hi. If you don't, you can only catch me on the next stream.
All right. Thanks again, Ryan, for
No problem.
taking all this time out of your Tuesday. Wait, Monday. I can't believe I said
Yeah.
Tuesday. Monday. But yeah, thanks as always, and I will see you all next time.
Bye bye. Thank you.